about Man United.
Hello guys, welcome to another episode of the Red Devils Disciples, where today we're doing something completely different. We're going to be doing a keep or sell. Now, you may have read rumours that there is a brutal overhaul of players coming to Man United, with as many as 10 players being sold in the summer, that is. And talking about it, the reasons behind it is because financially we are not in a good place. Since the Glazers took over in 2005, they put all the money that they purchased United with against the club in debt because they took out loans and they borrowed money. That was 550 million at the time. It rose to about 750 million by 2010. But then we also got 500 million bond, and we put the market on the New York Stock Exchange, should I say, in 2012, which brought the debt down slightly. But also what ended up happening is we are currently 1.09 billion in debt at the moment. And the truth about that is we owe other clubs 320 million in transfer revenue, or transfers, should we say. And we also have about 720 million owed in borrowed money. 510 is still against that Glazer sum where the initial buyout was. And then we borrowed 160 million in sort of a revolving credit facility that we have with the banks, which allowed us to make purchases since then, even though we were so much in debt. And the crazy thing about it is that you look at the finances for 22-23 season, we actually made a record revenue. We went from 583 million the year before up to 648.5 million or 0.4 million, depending where you read. But that's ultimately 65.5 million higher than the year before. But we still managed to lose 29 million pounds that year. So it's kind of a crazy thing to think that we're making so much more money, but we're still losing money, which shows that there's something fundamentally wrong within the Manchester United Football Club. Now, yes, we did reduce our losses from 160 million to 29 million. But the truth about that is we shouldn't be a club that runs in losses anyway. But here we go. This is a little exercise to try and build ourselves a little bit of a war chest. We've been told we have 100 million to spend in the summer, plus whatever we make from players. At least that's what's been reported. So as a little fun exercise, we're going to go through all of this. I just want to state that this is just purely looking at it from a logical perspective and from a footballing perspective, because I don't want anyone to get offended with the choices I make. It's not a personal thing. It's just my opinions at the end of the day. So first of all, we've got Andre Onana, and I would have him in the keep section. Okay, and the reason why I'd have Onana in the keep section is because he needs a little bit more time. Look, he's been atrocious this year. Okay, I would definitely keep him for one more year, and then if we don't see improvements, I would move him on at that point. Following that, we have Altay Bayindir. We still haven't seen him play for Man United. He's supposed to be starting tomorrow night in the FA Cup. I'm going to be honest with you, I'd prefer a younger keeper. So I would lean, without having much information on him, on the side of selling him. I reckon we could get about 5 million for him. He's on about £35,000 a week on wages. That can also go towards the war chest. I think we have a buyback clause for Matej Kova, who we actually sold at the start of the year, which was a bit of a baffling one that we sold him. We only sold him for 7.7 million. But I think it was one of those where he looked really impressive in the pre-season. He's gone to Bayern Leverkusen, and all of a sudden at Bayern Leverkusen, he's playing all the Europa League games, and he's got a really good record. He's conceded like 3 goals in 6 games or something like that. Everyone's ranting and raving about him. Even reports calling him Neuer 2.0. And we just offload him for 7.7 million, which, again, doesn't make sense. However, we do have a buyback clause. That might be something to explore. We've also got Tom Heaton there. I think Tom Heaton has been a great role model to some younger players. I know he's getting on in age. I know he's someone that's not going to really feature in the first team, but sometimes it's good to have some mature heads around the club that can keep some young players on a level and down to earth, essentially. So Tom Heaton would actually be someone that I would keep, maybe in a coaching capacity. We don't want to have him in a playing capacity, but that sort of mature level-headedness is always great to have for younger players. We've also got then El Bicho, El Carnicero, Lisandro Martinez. Right, what can I say about Lisandro Martinez other than we have really missed him this year? There's no way I would be looking to sell him. I would probably say that he is one of our centre backs or our starting centre backs for the next good few years. I'm looking forward to having him back in the first team. I think he'll make a massive difference for us, and I think that you can't undervalue the impact he had last year. Following that, we've also got Varane. Okay, Varane, well, he's 29 years old. He almost looks like he is starting to slow down a little bit. He is on 340,000 a week. That is quite a large sum of money in terms of wages. From a business perspective, it would make sense to offload him and get a younger player. I do not want to see him sold this year in the summer. I don't think we'll get a player of his caliber back in return. And quite frankly, I don't think we will be able to afford a player of his caliber in the next couple of years. So I would suck it up his wages and leave him at the club, at least until we can find someone who can permanently replace him. Harry Maguire, he's having a great season this year so far, especially after what happened to him last year in terms of his form, in terms of what he delivered on the pitch, all the mistakes he was making. He seems to have cut that all out this year. He is 30 years old, and he does limit us defensively, though. With him, we cannot play a high line. We have to play a deeper line because he doesn't have the legs to get back if a striker does get away. For that reason, I'd be looking to offload him and move him on. Now, there was a deal that fell through with West Ham last summer. I think that Harry Maguire would be a little bit more open to moving now. He said so himself. Is on 190,000 a week. I don't think we can expect a large fee, so I think something like 25 million is realistic for him at this point, especially with the wages, because there will be some sort of compensation there or something required to make sure that he does move. So I think he is in the sell pile. Apart from that, we've got Victor Lindelof. Again, he's been a great servant to us. Just to touch on Maguire before we move on, sorry. He's actually had a really good year. And I think he'll be great for England in the Euros. I just think that the way that we want to play, which is sort of high press in football, it doesn't really suit him. And we have to play a low defensive line for him to be able to play in our team, just because he doesn't have the legs like some other centre-backs. Moving on to Victor Lindelof, like I said, he's been a great servant to the club. I think it is time for him to move on, though. I think we could get about 20 million for him. He's on about 120,000 a week. He'd probably have to take reduced wages somewhere else, just because I don't know if anyone else will pay him that much money. Although it's not a ridiculous sum like some of the other players, but 20 million would go. It is quite cheap for a player like Victor Lindelof, in my opinion. You could probably go for more, but I'm just being realistic because of the high wages that we have. Johnny Evans, I'm going to say a similar thing to what I said with Tom Heaton. Great role model. He's 36 years old. I mean, look at the guy. He's been starting at centre-back for us. And in reality, he's actually done a decent job. It's just we're not going to be title contenders if we've got Johnny Evans at 36, 37 playing for us regularly. I would keep him in the capacity of a mentor sort of for the team, for the other younger players, same as Tom Heaton. I think he's got a great attitude. He gives everything for the cause, It's a shame we sold him all those years ago. I think it was 2013. I don't remember off the top of my head. But it's a shame we sold him because actually I said at the time that he was better than the centre-backs that we had and what we were bringing in. And actually he did prove it when he went to Leicester and did wonders over there. Right, Willie Kambwala. I hope I said that right. Sorry if I didn't. So, academy graduate, 19 years old. He's been blooded for the first time this year in the first team. I think it's one of those where we keep him. I think we'd love to see what he can do if he played a little bit more frequently. He's not going to get the chance at the moment because you've got Varane in there, you've got Martinez coming back, you've got some experienced players there. But I would like to see more of him before I would make a decision to move him on. So at the moment, I'm going to say keep. Then we've got Luke Shaw down at left back. I was actually surprised. For some reason, I thought he was younger. Luke Shaw is 28 years old. He is getting on. and those injuries keep coming. I think at the moment we keep him because we don't have a better option at left back. But it's one of those where in the next 2 or 3 years, I might be looking to move him on. However, he is still the best left back at the club by a country mile. So I would make sure that we keep him. Tyrone Malacia. Okay. Same as Luke Shaw. For some reason, I thought Tyrone Malacia was younger, but he's 24 years old. Like, he's not a kid anymore. And he's not really been as good as we would hope since coming to Man United. We kind of wanted him to be someone to challenge Shaw and push Shaw to make them both better, but he's just always injured. And then when he's not injured, I'm not really seeing the best of him, or at least what we were told he would be like. If he stays fit, I reckon he'd probably go for 25 million, but realistically, 15 million is probably something that we'd get for him. And he's on 75,000 a week. So I would sell him to raise funds, to be honest with you. And that means so far up till now, just looking at defenders, we've raised 65 million to add to the 100 million that we already have, and about 420,000 pounds a week in terms of the wages that we'd be offloading. Brandon Williams is in there. He's currently out on loan at Ipswich. Again, I would be selling Brandon Williams. He's not a kid anymore. He's not going to make it into the first team. I remember when he was 18, 19, watching him thinking, oh, he's got the potential. He's definitely had the attitude, wasn't scared to get stuck in and throw a kick or two if needed, if you know what I mean. But I think it's time for him to move on for his sake. Otherwise, he's going to have a whole career of just being loaned out left, right, and centre, never really playing for Man United. So I think it's time we move him on. I don't envisage us getting much money for him. Something around 8 million would be great to do. We do well to get 8 million, should I say. He's also doing 65k a week, so we can add that onto the war chest. Diego Dalot. I would not be touching Diego Dalot. I think going forward, he's pretty decent as a right back or as a wing back even. Sorry, he overlaps well. He cuts inside. He'll take a shot. He's not scared to put a cross in. Defensively, he's not the greatest in his size, but he'll do a job. And he's only 24, so it is someone that. He's already in the first team. I don't see a reason to move him on. I also don't think we have a better right back at the moment. Yes, Wan-Bissaka is probably better defensively, but going forward, Aaron Wan-Bissaka just doesn't really add much to the team. So with Dalot, it's a keep. With Aaron Wan-Bissaka, I think it's a sell. And this is a little bit disappointing for me because I actually really like Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I think defensively in one-on-ones, he's great. He rarely loses one. Just going forward, he doesn't really bring much to the team. So it's one of those where there's been talk of interest in him recently from like Al Nassr and a couple other places. I'd probably be looking to cash in on him in the summer to raise funds so we can purchase players and bring in young talents that we may want to see in the club. I reckon we could probably get about 35 million for him. Probably won't get more. He's on 90k, so he's not on extortionate wages, but, I just don't see us, given our track record with sales, I don't see us getting more than 35 million, to be honest with you. So he would be on my sell list. Then you've got Alvaro Fernandez, who's already on loan this year. The loan deal includes a buy option at Benfica. He was at Granada, if I'm not mistaken. Wasn't playing much. Got recalled. Has now gone to Benfica. I think it's Benfica. I'll have to check that. But the deal is around £7 million as a buy clause. And then you get 4K in wages, basically. He doesn't really earn that much in terms of wages. So before we move on anywhere else, onto our midfield, that's already raised 115 million in transfer sales in fees if we were to sell the players that I'm suggesting, and 579,000 in weekly wages. So already that's starting to add up. Add on the 100 million onto that, that's 215 million as it stands. Now moving on to midfield, we've got Casemiro is 31. Yes, he's on 350,000 a week. He's also a best midfielder. I don't understand this whole media-driven campaigns to say that he's lost his legs, he's old, he shouldn't be playing. The guy last year dominated in the Premier League. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you were watching, but he was absolutely amazing. He controlled midfield. He passes forward. He's always where he was supposed to be. Look, at the start of this year, yes, he got caught out a few times. He didn't look quite right. Didn't look like he was fully fit. But apart from that, we also left him exposed. Tactically, we had two midfielders that bombarded forward and left him by himself against two or three central midfielders. I don't care how good you are. You're not going to beat two or three central midfielders if you're by yourself. So for me, it's a keep. I'd love to see him play next to Kobe Mainoo. I think they would make a very good team and almost give Bruno a bit more freedom up in front of them because they would sort of hold the fort down in central midfield. So it's a keep for me. Amrabat, I'm a little bit disappointed by Amrabat. I expected more when we first loaned him in. And I know we got the option to buy. He's 27. He's not really lived up to the hype. It's been a little bit underwhelming. There's a couple of games where I saw something special there. Well, not something special, but I saw something there, I think we do not take the option up to buy him, which means that we free up 65k, which we're currently allocating to him. Scott McTominay. Okay, right. Scott McTominay. What can I say about Scott McTominay? Right, he is homegrown talent. I think if we were in a better position, we'd probably be looking to sell him, just because he's the kind of player that if he doesn't score a goal, he has a bad game, because tactically he just leaves us exposed. He hardly touches the ball. He's very clanky at times, and then out of nowhere he'll do a 1-2, get in the box and score a goal. Again, off the pitch, he apparently shows a great attitude, so he is someone that you almost want around the team just because of that, and especially right now when we're struggling with having players sort of give their all, or we have not necessarily now, but we have been struggling at the start of the year. I think he's an off the bench option. I think if we're losing last 10, 15 minutes, throw him in, throw him up front. He can score a goal if he's in the box. So I would keep him for now. Eriksen. Okay. I really like Eriksen as a player. I do. I just don't think he can play at the level we need him to in the Premier League for Manchester United. So for that reason, I would say thank you to him, but I would let him go to raise funds. And being realistic, he's on 150,000 a week. We're probably going to get like 15 million for him. I probably won't get more than that. Would I be upset if we kept him? No, absolutely not. I think there's some times where he gets on the pitch and he looks great. There's other times where he gets on the pitch and he just looks like he's not there. It depends who he comes up against and what style of play he comes up against. But I think as he gets older, he's just going to get slower in a central midfield that is full of fast players, full of strong players. He's not particularly the biggest guy in the world either. So what he does have is he has great vision with the ball, and he does open up teams. I just don't know if that's enough to keep you playing for Man United, especially if we're trying to push to challenge for the titles. And as a fan, that's what I want to see, us challenging for the title. Moving on to Kobe Mainoo. I don't need to say anything about him. He's a straight keep. There is no discussion to be had here. Young talent. Looks great. Straight from the academy. Walked into the first team. Does not look out of place. Looks like he's been there for years. Cannot wait to see him play alongside Casemiro. That's where I stand. And then we got Donny van de Beek. Look, Donny van de Beek, I wish him nothing but the best. We've loaned him to Frankfurt, and they've got the buy option over there. I think the buy option is 12.5 million, and he's on 120k in terms of weekly wages. Look, Donny van de Beek is someone that at no point has given us any reason to dislike him. He has been consistent in terms of his attitude. He has been professional. He's been everything you want in a player off the field. He's just always injured. Like, he's one of the most unluckiest guys I've ever seen in terms of injuries. And I think it's one of those where he deserves a new start. Even when he's not injured now, he's not getting into the team. So I think moving him on would probably be best for him so he can have a new start. Maybe Frankfurt is somewhere where he could, kickstart his career again. And then you got Danglo, who's also been loaned out, but he has no buy option. He has been loaned out for experience purposes. A good young talent, good young midfielder. I would give him some time. I would bring him back and probably next year keep him, and then slowly start to integrate him. Especially if you're doing the sales that I'm suggesting in this video, he'd be someone that I'd slowly start playing more and more, see what you get out of him, give him a year, give him 2 years, and then if you don't see any progress, then it's a case of moving him on. And then we have El Capitan, Bruno Fernandes. I mean, he's our captain, isn't he? So he's not going anywhere. But I will say this, I wouldn't be surprised if in 2 or 3 years we did sell Bruno Fernandes. He is great going forward. He's great on the ball. He creates stuff out of nothing. But he does leave us exposed a lot. He tends to do passes that don't always get there because he goes for the risky pass, which I completely get as a creative player why he would do that. I would say keep. Probably our best player going forward offensively. So he's not going anywhere. We got Mason Mount. Was signed to almost be Eriksen's replacement to play that number sort of 8 role. Hasn't really worked out for him so far. Yes, he's had a lot of injuries. When he's been on the pitch, he's not really looked like. He almost looks a bit lost sometimes. But he's had some time off. I know they're taking their time with him and bringing him back. I know there's no date scheduled for him to come back. So I kind of want to see a bit more of him first before we do decide to do anything else with him. He's just signed, so he's not going to be sold, let's be honest. And it's one of those where there's a lot of potential there. When he was coming over, the Chelsea fans, all my friends that are Chelsea fans, just kept saying what a gem we had coming to our team and that we will see how good he actually is. Just not seen it yet. So hopefully he can kickstart his career with us and show us a little bit more. Shola Shortire, what can I say about this guy? I've heard so much about him in terms of what a talent and prospect he is. I mean, you look at his stats this year, he's played 12 games, he's got 9 goals, 4 assists for the reserves. I mean, it's a promising kid. He's an attacking player, can play as an attacking midfielder or a little bit further forward. I would already have promoted this kid and have him on the bench with us and slowly start integrating him into the first team. We've seen when players do get integrated from the youth setup, it's one of two things. Either they swim or sink. And we've had quite a few players swim lately. Garnacho, Menu. We've had quite a few others sort of dip in and out, like Facundo and a few more. We've got youth all through our team. So maybe it's time to give this guy an opportunity, especially if we're not signing anyone in the January transfer window, which is what it's looking like. And Anthony Martial is injured for 10 weeks now. Well, he's in rehab for 10 weeks because he had surgery. And luckily it was successful surgery. But Anthony Martial isn't going anywhere. So maybe this kid could be an option to bring in and see how he does. Hannibal's been loaned out with the option to buy to Sevilla, I believe. The fee is 17.5 million, and he's only about 5k in terms of wages. I think this is a good deal for us in terms of if he goes, we get 17.5 million. If he doesn't go, he's gained experience, comes back hopefully with a more mature head and learns to perform at a higher standard on the pitch. I love his passion. I love how he is full gung-ho and isn't scared to show how committed he is on the football pitch. If he does leave, we've got a buyback option on the deal, which is 30 million, which at the end of the day is something that we'd be happy to pay if he does turn into the player that he could be, because he could be something special. It's whether or not he's going to fulfill that potential. But bringing up to date everybody here now, the transfer revenue we would have made if we did make these sales is 160 million in sales, and 919,000 in weekly wages would be taken off the bill. So you can see that war chest starting to build up now. And we'll move on. Marcus Rashford. What can I say about Marcus Rashford? Last year probably had the best year he's had in terms of football. This year probably had the worst year he's had in terms of football. I just like there to be a happy middle ground, scoring 20, 22, 23 goals a season. I'm okay with that. Don't need you to score 50. But this year has been atrocious, let's be honest. Even with that said, I don't see any way we can sell Marcus Rashford. If we can get him back to his best, he's one of the best players in the league. He proved it last year that he can hang. He proved it last year that he's got it within him. It's whether or not he can prove that he can do that consistently year on year. And let's be honest, he also brings a lot more to the club than just his goals. Commercially, he's an asset to have. He's very popular amongst the fans, very popular amongst even opposition fans. Everyone seems to like Marcus Rashford. He does a lot for the community. He does a lot for people in need. And to be honest with you, I would not be selling him. But moving on. So we've got Alejandro Garnacho. I mean, what can I say about Alejandro Garnacho other than has the potential to be a world star player? World star player? That doesn't make sense. Has the potential to be a special talent? I don't know. Something like that. Anyways, you know what I'm trying to say. Someone that you would be starting in our team for the next 10, 15 years is what I see Garnacho as, if we take care of him properly. So for that reason, Garnacho is not going anywhere. Anthony, okay. I'm torn when it comes to Anthony. I like him. I do. He gives everything for the club. He goes forward, comes back. He chases his player down, isn't afraid to get stuck in. Has that little bit of, how do I say this? Like, picardia, like a little bit of, not afraid to put his foot in if he needs to let the player know where he is, But he's not delivering. And that's just, unfortunately, what the game is about. And I would give him one more year. If he doesn't start to deliver, unfortunately for Anthony, I'd be moving him on to another club. I really hope it doesn't come to that. I really hope he just delivers, And he's shown glimpses that he can, but he's already lost his place to Garnacho on the right wing. You got Diallo and Facundo Bellesti coming in and trying to take that place off him too, let alone if we were to bring back any other players that are on loan, So I think it's one of those that Anthony's got one more year, and if he's not able to break into the team and be a consistent starter and consistently deliver too, I think it's time for him to move on. Amad Diallo, right. Amad Diallo, what a great young talent we have on our hands here. Just raw talent. Went to Sunderland last year, did really well, won Young Player of the Year. I think he scored 14 goals, had 3 assists, if I'm not mistaken. But they voted him Young Player of the Year. Now, at the start of the year, it looked like he may break into the team, but again, injuries have kept him out, and he's only just come back. But it would be good to see him on the right wing and see what he can do. I remember when he in his debut, was it in the Champions League or Europe? I can't remember. It was one of the European tournaments, and I remember the ball came over the top, came straight to him, headed it over the keeper, debut goal, right? And then it's kind of like been this exciting prospect there, but we've not quite seen it, or we haven't seen the fruits of it yet. Hopefully, we will see it, and hopefully it'll be this year, and he'll stake claim to one of those wings. Facundo Bellesti, again, looks like a great talent. I would be keeping him. I would. I'd be trying to turn him into a regular on the team, but I also understand there's a lot of competition there. So I would still give him another year, maybe 2 even, to see if we can get the best out of him. Rasmus Højlund. Rasmus. Anyways, it's a keep. I mean, this guy looks like he could be one of the great strikers that we've had in years gone by. He needs to be able to finish a little bit better. He's had plenty of opportunities in the Premier League. He's just not been putting it into the back of the net, but that could also be a confidence thing. In the Champions League, we saw what he was made of, where he scored 6 goals. And I think that we'd like to see that repeated in the Premier League. Recently, he's been scoring a little bit more, which is great. He's up and running. I reckon that's done well, good for his confidence. I just want to see him do it regularly, if that makes sense. Anthony Martial. I always feel a bit sad about Anthony Martial. When he first came, I remember that goal against Liverpool. He just ran in between everyone, kind of stopped. And I think was it Skirtle? I kind of went past him and he just placed it on the other corner. Anyways, I think it's a shame because I actually think he had all the talent in the world to be a world-class player. But I think it's time. I think the board have already confirmed anyway that they're not going to renew his contract. And what can I say other than he's one of those players that's been plagued with injuries throughout the years. When he's got a run of games, always does really well, but unfortunately just doesn't have those run of games often enough. Like I said, the club aren't renewing his contract, or at least that's what the reports say. We won't get a fee for him because his contract expires this year, but we will get the $250,000 a week that he is paid at the moment. We've got Sancho, right? Jadon Sancho. I think, for the sake of everybody involved in Manchester United, including Jadon Sancho, it is time for him to move on. I think what's happened recently was wrong. It shouldn't have happened, and there's more than one person at fault about it. However, when you're being called out for your professionalism, when your team makes a mess and you just ask to and you just apologize, we need you. When you've been on strike for 4 months and haven't tried to resolve it, you didn't just let yourself down, you let the team down, you let the fans down too. Now, I've got no ill will towards Sancho. I really hope he succeeds. We were very excited when he first came. We thought we were getting a world-class player, which is in there, by the way. He has got the potential to be one of the best wingers in the world. I just don't know if Man United is the right club for him. And I think for the sake of the club and for him and his mental well-being and his happiness, he probably needs to move on. Now, with regards to that, he is, he's probably going to not return what we paid for him. So we're probably looking at a loss. I think 55 million is not an unrealistic sum of money to request for him. I know the club are requesting something much higher, but 55 million I think is a fair amount. And he's also on 250,000 in wages, and I can see us getting that realistically. If we get more, bonus. If we don't, that's not a bad sum to get for him with everything considered. Again, wish him nothing but the best. Mason Greenwood. Okay, this is a tough one. We all heard everything that was said in those voice clips. We saw the pictures, we saw the images. Since then, Mason Greenwood has obviously gone to Getafe. He's doing okay there. Considering he's been out for 2 years, he's done okay. Putting football aside, I am torn between what I saw and heard and the fact that he and his missus are engaged and have had a kid since then. And I know what you're going to say about, people going back to their abusers and this and the other, but charges were dropped. The investigation by both club and police have been sufficiently investigated that they're not willing to press charges, and with Man United that he was not guilty of what he was accused of. That's what they said in their statement. I kind of want to see him have a second chance. But it'd be a second chance on, and I know it's risky to say this, it'd be a second chance as in your last chance. Anything else that goes wrong and you are out of here pretty much. At the same time, I completely understand if people want to sell him. I completely understand if the club do sell him and don't bring him back. But we've got teams like Barcelona, like Real Madrid, all sniffing around him. Let's talk about Juventus sniffing for him also and then wanting to buy him. These are the top clubs in the world, and they're willing to buy him and play and have him play for them. What's the difference between them and us? That's the only thing I will ask. He was a child when all this happened, and children make mistakes, is what I would say. Right, so what does that mean in terms of our war chest build-up? Right, so including Sancho and including Martial and everything going on there, we have raised 215 million in sales. Adding 100 million on, we'd have 315 million in total. We'd have a reduction in wages of 1.42 million per week, or if you break it down throughout the year, that's just under 74 million pounds a year, which you could obviously adjust and add to the transfer fee, transfer wage fees, not wages, or you could just keep it there for wages. But what would I do? Well, if you'd like to know what I would do with that money, tune in for part 2 of this video, where we will discuss potential signings using the budget we've created that we would bring into the club. This will drop next week at some point. I will promote it in the videos before then and tell you when it's happening. I will also show you the squad, using the squad we currently have here, where the gaps are and where I would fill in and who I would use. Thank you so much if you're still here, guys. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Make sure you comment down below too, and just, ask any questions. Tell me what you'd like to see. Always good to have some feedback. And please turn on notifications. But until next time, see you later.